Martin, who is the team manager. Charlene lives in Cherry Gardens. I think we all know her well, and she has done great things and continues to do great things in cricket. The St. Kitts Nevis Carifta team departed the Federation on April 18th to participate in the 2025 Carifta Games in Trinidad. The Nevis contingent was seen off by the Ministry of Education and Sports personnel here on Nevis. The St. Kitts Nevis team captured 3 bronze medals during Carifta 2025. We wish to highlight the Nevisians who were part of the team. Abhijay Nemdari, he finished 4th in the under-17 javelin. Kezia Phillip, shot put under-17 girls, performed creditably. Najeev Kelly ran a personal best in the 1500-meter under-17 boys. Kimani Newton competed in the 800 under-17 boys. Udell Wisdom placed 5th in the under-20 shot put. Najeev, Abija, Kimani were also on the 4x400 under-17 team that made the finals. We say, of course, thank you to the athletes, their coaches, and SKN Athletics for supporting the young athletes. We look forward to their continued growth, development, and success in the future. Let me extend, ladies and gentlemen, warm congratulations to young Alger Newton, former Deputy Director, Department of Sports, who has been promoted to the position of Director, Department of Sports, effective May 1st, 2025. Mr. Newton has worked diligently in the execution of his duties, and we want to wish him every success. I feel especially proud because from this rostrum I've been able to announce from time to time various people who have been promoted, and you will find that there's a consistency. They're all young people. Alger is a young person. I remember when he would have left and traveled on scholarship to the J.C. Foster College in Jamaica to study, and he has now been back with us, and he has moved up through the ranks to the point where at his youthful age, he is now the Director of Sports in Nevis. We continue not only to talk about empowering our youth, but actually demonstrating that empowerment. The Disaster Management Department has officially commenced preparations for the upcoming 2025 Atlantic hurricane season. Early predictions from the Colorado State University suggest an above-average hurricane season with 19 named storms. 9 could become hurricanes, 4 of which could become major hurricanes. As part of the disaster management efforts, emergency shelters have been thoroughly inspected, and necessary remedial repairs are being currently undertaken to ensure their readiness. Shelter and management training, we are pleased to announce that shelter and shelter management training has been successfully completed. That was done 24th to 25th April, with 16 individuals receiving comprehensive training. This initiative is crucial for ensuring that our shelters are managed effectively during emergencies. In addition to shelter preparations, we have completed school safety training for early childhood educators, and that was done on 7th to 8th April. This training aims to enhance the safety protocols in schools, ensuring the well-being of our youngest and most vulnerable citizens during hurricane events. Looking ahead, the Nevis Disaster Management will conduct training for individuals responsible for initial damage assessment and the damage assessment needs analysis during the month of May. This training is vital for accurately assessing the impact of hurricanes on the productive and social sectors and determining the necessary responses. We appreciate very much the community's support and cooperation as we work diligently to prepare for the hurricane season. Together we can ensure the safety and resilience of Nevis. Let me go on record, members of the press and public, to congratulate the Honorable Spencer Brand on his leadership, and of course Mr. Brian Dyer on his leadership at disaster management, because as you can tell, Nevis is out of the blocks early. Each year we ensure that from very early in the year we start the necessary preparations. We prepare, and we pray to God that we won't need to utilize what we have prepared for, but we prepare. And of course, we ensure each year that we are in an advanced state of readiness for any storm or other natural disaster that will come. But we pray, and we invite everyone to pray, that we will again this year be saved the ravages of any storms or other natural disaster. Public Works Department, we are undertaking some works at the supply office in Pinnes, and we continue with those works. We are also at the finishing stages of renovating the old water department office spaces. I'm told that all that's left there now is some painting and tiling to be done. We are also doing some work at Government House, which, as you know, is the official residence of our Deputy Governor General and offices of our Deputy Governor General, and we are fixing some issues there associated with water intrusion from the roof parapet and windowsills. We also completed, and in fact I visited it myself yesterday, the drainage enhancement project in Brownhill at the bottom of what we call Wilkinson Road. That, I think, is a very important project because over the years residents, they have complained that when it rains, they have flooding, significant flooding in that area. And so I again commend Minister Brand and his team and the excellent work that Public Works has been undertaking in order to remedy the situation there at Brownhill. Good news, ladies and gentlemen, that on the 7th of April, the Public Works Department mobilized works on Morgan's Estate, Brown Pasture Road. So far, clearing and grubbing works have been done, and the Nevis Water Department is currently laying a new water distribution line. The actual road construction will commence immediately after completion of the water mains installation. I want to pause there for a moment because this is a road that we have been repeatedly reminded by residents in the area needs to be done. It is, unlike other areas on Nevis where people complain that their roads might be a little bumpy, in this instance, the road had been continually washed away. The residents had, in fact, sent us a petition. And it was so critical because many were arguing that if there was an emergency, that the ambulance or other emergency vehicles could not traverse that road. I have been on that road myself in an SUV, and it was almost impossible to traverse it. And so I believe that this is relief that is long overdue to the people who are in that Upper Brown Pasture, Morgan's Estate area. And I am grateful that we have started that project and that relief is now coming. Consistent with our approach on these projects, once we're doing roads, we upgrade our water in the area at the same time. And so that is exactly what we're doing. We are upgrading the water mains in that area. And so we ask, of course, the residents to continue to be patient with us. We are now moving, and we will get that project done in short order for them. We are also undertaking the fencing of a private property in Butler's Village. And I want to explain that quickly because you may well ask, why is government fencing private property? The property was used as a stockpile and storage area throughout the entire span of the Butler's Road reconstruction project. As you know, we were able to deliver that project, finalize it, just I think about a year ago, sometime last year. The fencing works at the property was part of the agreement that we made with the owner. So we used their property throughout the 2 years or so, 18 months that project lasted, and part of that was when we were done, we would restore their property and fence it for them, including what has become critical, which is the construction of a retaining wall for the protection of the road and of the property. So if you see government workers there, it is because that was the agreement that was arrived at, and that property owner kindly allowed us to use their property throughout the duration of the construction period for the storage of materials and equipment that was used on that road. World Day for Safety and Health at Work is celebrated on the 28th day of April each year. In commemoration of this day, the Department of Labor will host its second Occupational Safety and Health Seminar on the 29th day of April at the Nevis Disaster Management Conference Room on Long Point Road. This year's theme is Revolutionizing Health and Safety, the role of AI and digitalization at work. And so we expect, of course, attendees to be there. We are going to cover areas like mental health, ergonomics, disaster preparedness, occupational safety and health, environmental health, planning insurance, and the Protection of Employment Act. All of that will be discussed there. And again, we continue on a relentless march to educate our public and to engage with our stakeholders in a positive way. The Boys and Girls of Class Etiquette Camp was held at the Charles L. Walters Community Center from Monday, April 7th to Thursday, 17th April. The purpose of the camp was to provide a fun, engaging way to teach children valuable social skills, table manners, and communication techniques. The camp was focused on building confidence, respect, and social awareness, preparing our children for various social situations. I am happy to report that we had 9 participants, not as many as we would have liked, but the facilitators said that it turned out that having that small number allowed them to be more hands-on with the participants. And we have had very good feedback, not only from the participants, but from their parents. And we continue, of course, to engage in educating our young people. And etiquette is still very important. Etiquette is still very important. Sometimes we live in a society now where people forget that good manners is still very important. We used to say when I was a child that manners will get you around the world without a cent. And little things, good morning, good afternoon, standing in line, holding a door for someone, all of those. Even sometimes driving on the road, etiquette is important. How do you drive? How do you conduct yourself? How do you dress? How do you go about your business? It is all very important. And so these are efforts that we are making to get with our children and to impart those skills which are important for life to them. The Department of Community Affairs is thrilled to announce the winner of the Community Development Month slogan competition. Out of the 9 slogan entries, Kegel Smitten has captured the spirit of community, unity, and progress with its inspiring slogan, Together we grow, together we thrive, our community, our pride. He will receive a cash prize of $250, and we say congratulations to young Kegel Smitten. We are inviting the entire Nevis to be part of Community Development Month. We are inviting you, your friends, family, and colleagues to join us as really we celebrate our community under that theme, Together we grow, together we thrive, our community, our pride. It's going to be a month-long celebration, and we invite you to participate. Some of the big activities, of course, we have a church service, the Jessup's Seafood Fiesta. We're going to have a podcast, which is something new, Caribbean Migrant Masculinities, and that will be on Thursday, 8th May. The Department of Community Development, in collaboration with the Department of Gender Affairs, will be hosting a podcast entitled Caribbean Migrant Masculinities. This will be held at the Malcolm Guichard Recreational Park at 10 a.m. And it's intended to be a powerful podcast discussion that dives into the challenges that migrant men face. We have a floral arrangement workshop, and the facilitator for that is none other than Mrs. Vernerine Isaac, who for many years did this at the Four Seasons Resort. We are going to be having a beginner's auto body repair training workshop, jumbo sale, community cares, food drive, and distribution. And let me spend a moment to talk about that. In response to the rising cost of food due to global inflation, we have decided to host a food drive. At the heart of every strong community is compassion. And that's why the Department of Community Development is hosting the Community Food Drive. We are kindly soliciting the public's support by donating non-perishable food items and toiletries, such as canned goods, rice, pasta, cereal, oatmeal or cream of wheat, sugar, milk, toilet paper, soap, and things of that nature. Everyday products that people use. This food drive will run from April 15th to May 23rd, 2025. Food items can be dropped off at the main office for Community Affairs, and the target is to get at least 5 persons per parish in the first instance. We want to thank Rams Supermarket, because Rams has been assisting us with collection, and there will be a bin at the supermarket for drop-off. So members of the press, when you go to Rams, just drop off something in that bin. It could be some toilet paper, some tins of something, but help us. And we ask the members of the public to do likewise. And at the end of the day, this is an outreach effort to the community. And through community affairs, we will benefit in each parish at least 5 persons who are in need of that assistance. And so we see it as an opportunity to get together. There is also, of course, an important event, the Nevis Multicultural Heritage Festival. This, again, is an innovation that this government has introduced. And this year, at the Nevis Multicultural Heritage Festival, we're taking your taste buds on a delicious journey across the Caribbean and all the way to Africa. This exciting event is slated for Saturday, May 31st at the MJR Park, beginning at 12 p.m. Get ready to sample bold, flavorful dishes from countries like Jamaica, Trinidad and Tobago, Guyana, Dominica, Dominican Republic, St. Lucia, St. Kitts Nevis, and beyond, plus rich, authentic cuisine from Botswana, Kenya, Nigeria, Ethiopia, and more. The idea behind this really is to bring people together. We understand that Nevis has now become a melting pot with many people living here from other countries, not only those in the Caribbean, but countries farther afield. And so we are inviting everyone to sign up for this. And the idea really is that the public should have an opportunity to sample dishes, cuisine, and get a little piece of the culture from these various countries. So if you want to taste jollof rice from Nigeria, you should go there. If you want to enjoy, I don't know, saltfish, what they call it, Accra in Trinidad and Tobago, you can go there. The pepper pot from Guyana, you can go there. The sancoche, I think they call it in Dominica, you can go there. The paella from the Dominican Republic, or any of those dishes. Goat water from Nevis, because we have the best goat water. St. Kitts, what St. Kitts is going to cook? Something else? St. Kitts is going to cook something else. But we're going to have some good times, and we invite everyone to go and have a look. I am not familiar with Kenyan and Botswanan and Ethiopian food, so I can't speak to those. But the idea really is to bring people together, and we hope to have a fun-filled day. And general admission is only $5, and you're asked to go and sample this multicultural heritage festival. I think that it really is a tremendous, tremendous innovation, and I want to thank, of course, the Honorable Janelle Nisbet and her entire team for the hard work that they continue to put in. As I'm speaking of the Honorable Janelle Nisbet and her team, let me move now to the critical area of health. The Mental Health Mentorship Camp Summary, Youth Mental Health. I thought that this was a tremendous innovation because the Youth Health Mentorship Camp was hosted by the Health Promotion Unit and led by Dr. Hadassah Willett Sargent and Dr. Tivon Brown. It was held from April 7th to 17th at the Gender Affairs Conference Room in Nevis. 19 enthusiastic participants gained hands-on experience in essential clinical skills, including basic life support, measuring blood pressure and blood sugar, conducting urinalysis, and interpreting body composition scans. These skills prepare them to assist at health screenings and gain real-world exposure. Now imagine these are young people going into this camp and learning how to do some of these things. It's important because as we will now rely on them when we do our pop-up screenings all around the island. But imagine that your youngsters now know how to do these things and can take those skill sets into the home. So when mommy or daddy needs to get their blood pressure checked or needs to get their blood glucose checked, these young people are now equipped with the skills to assist them. We also took the youths to a camp in St. Kitts where they would have toured the St. Kitts Biomedical Research Foundation and Windsor School of Medicine, which offered them greater insight. Throughout the program, our students interacted with local healthcare professionals and shadowed mentors in their fields of interest. The initiative promoted personal growth, built confidence, and inspired a passion for health-related careers, underscoring a strong commitment to youth development and future healthcare workforce planning. I want, again, members of the press and public, these things are not random. These initiatives are calculated initiatives, well thought out initiatives. And here we are encouraging our young people and we had 19 participants. And from that, we are hopeful that we will nurture their interest in medicine, in healthcare. We know that healthcare is a vast array of services. We are accustomed to the doctors and the nurses, but we have technicians, we have people who are involved in education, we have nutritionists, we have people involved in, natural healing and massages and physiotherapy. There's so many opportunities. Labs and lab work. What they call it? Phlebotomy? Phlebotomy is the word, I think. These are things which we are encouraging and immersing our young people in it, allowing them to rub shoulders with professionals is only intended to encourage them. We keep complaining that we do not have enough people in our healthcare sector. We keep complaining that we have to import doctors and import nurses. These are calculated, well thought through initiatives that are designed to say to our young people, there are opportunities in the healthcare sector, and we suggest that you take these opportunities on and become a healthcare professional. The Lesser Antilles Medical Assistant Team, LAMAT, that mission concluded on Friday, April 4th, with a closing ceremony on St. Kitts. The Nevis leg of the mission featured a dedicated team comprising 13 personnel from the United States Air Force and 6 personnel from the Taiwan Taipei Veteran Hospital. A wide range of healthcare services were delivered across the island during this collaborative initiative. At the Accident and Emergency Department, consultations were provided to 27 patients. Audiology screenings, that is, to check your hearing, were conducted at the Brownhill Health Center, where a total of 196 clients, ranging in age from 1 month to 98 years, received care. That is simply amazing. 196 patients, ranging from 1 month to 98 years in age, received care during this audiology or hearing exam screenings that were done. Notably, 39 clients were fitted with hearing aids, significantly enhancing their quality of life. Dental services were also offered by them. We had 101 dental examinations, 42 fillings, 21 extractions, and 57 cleanings. These services were provided to both children and adults, including residents of the island's 2 nursing homes. Beyond the direct medical care provided, the mission yielded numerous benefits for local health facilities. These included invaluable knowledge exchange between international and local healthcare professionals, as well as the donation of essential medical supplies from both the United States and Taiwan teams. This marks, ladies and gentlemen, the second time that the LAMAT mission has been hosted in the Federation, and the Ministry of Health is deeply appreciative of the continued partnership. We look forward to strengthening this collaboration in the years ahead to further enhance healthcare delivery on the island of Nevis. The Department of Gender Affairs, in collaboration with its partner, the St. Kitts Nevis Fire and Rescue Services, Behavioral Health and Wellness Center, Nevis Health Promotion Unit, and the Department of Community Development, held a free men health screening on Saturday, April 26, at the eastern end of the Vance Amory International Airport parking lot. The event consisted of free health screenings, educational sessions, games, and entertainment, and sought to encourage fathers, sons, brothers, uncles, all men, to come out, get informed, get screened, and take charge of their health. You know I've been preaching for some time from this rostrum that we need to know our status and take charge of our health. The professionals are telling me that men are in a particular risk category because for whatever reason, our men, maybe we feel we're macho, we're not going and checking up on our health. Men carry a lot of stress, a lot of strain. A lot of men are providing for families. They have the difficulties. And oftentimes it is said that there is not sufficient support systems and mechanisms in place for our menfolk. One of the things, however, that men can do to protect themselves is to ensure that they get regular checkups. I, ladies and gentlemen, continue to lament that some men end up with advanced prostate cancer, for example, because we've introduced for years now prostate screening. We have invited our men folk to go and get tested. And prostate cancer, I'm told, is one of those cancers that is 100% curable if caught in time. And so we ask our men folk out there, please take advantage of these opportunities to know your status, to check your health. Cut back on the drinking of alcohol, cut back on the smoking, engage in some exercise, and eat moderately. These are important, simple lifestyle changes that could make a huge difference to delaying the onset of disease. And so we invite our men folk yet again to take advantage of this, and our health approach, the whole ethos of our approach to health is that it is far cheaper for you to stay healthy than it is for you to be treated for a disease. If you, for example, can prevent the onset of diabetes or hypertension, it is far easier to do that than to eat and drink whatever you want, and then for the next 20, 30 years you have to be on medication to deal with hypertension or to deal with diabetes. And we know that these are gateways to things like renal failure. So when people say, oh, we need to invest in dialysis, I agree. But we also need to encourage our people to do some of the lifestyle changes that would help them not to need dialysis, to put them in a position where they would be healthier and we can delay the onset. As a child, I remember down Hanley's Road, we used to be told that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And that is still true. In the context of healthcare in Nevis, we say $1 of prevention is worth $100 of cure. So let us continue to preach that message, that knowing your status, taking care of your health is important. A lot of us defer. We delay taking care of ourselves. We say, I'm going to go next week. I'm going to go next month because I have this to do and I have that to do. We should all know, because it's a truism, that without your health, nothing else matters. And we need healthy, productive people if we are to push this island forward. And so I encourage men folk, again, to take advantage. I encourage all of us, but men folk in particular, whom we are told are shy, don't like to go to the doctor, like to have a pain in their chest, pain in their foot, they say it's gas. That is the constant refrain that you hear from our men folk whenever they have a pain. So it's important that we take charge. The Health Promotion Unit, in collaboration with Community Nursing Services, also completed a diabetes symposium, which was held on World Health Day, April 7th, at the St. Paul's Anglican Church. The purpose was to introduce the community to the recently launched CARFA Nutrition Toolkit guidelines for the management of diabetes in primary care. 30 participants attended and benefited from nutrition and healthy eating presentations, educational session on diabetic food care, and interactive physical activity demonstrations. So again, we continue. Education, education, education. Know your body, know your status, get checkups regularly, go to your doctor. Education, education, education. Let me move to our eye clinic, which has been quietly one of the most successful aspects of healthcare on the island of Nevis. The first session of the 2025 Nevis Eye Clinic program would have commenced on April 14th. To date, 31 cataract surgeries have been successfully completed. I believe that's important. From April 14th to now, 31 successful cataract surgeries have been done right here in Nevis at the Alexandra Hospital, including one these medical terms. This looks like trichiasis, which is an eyelash removal. I'm not sure what that is, but that's the note that I have. Eyelash removal surgery and 2 prosthetic eye placement. Of note, ladies and gentlemen, and I feel particularly proud of this, that assisting with all of these procedures was none other than our own from Bath Village, Dr. Kentisha Daly. She's a second-year ophthalmology resident in Cuba, and she would have gone back to specialize. You know, I have been encouraging for some time now our young doctors to consider going off to specialize and coming back, because we have a large number of what we call general practitioners, but we have very few specialists. And we need surgeons, we need gynecologists, we need internists. And young Kentisha Daly would have taken up the challenge, and she's doing ophthalmology. And she's already putting her skills to work, even though she's not yet qualified in terms of having the final qualifications as an ophthalmologist, by working with those who are coming here. I want to join the ministry in extending appreciation to Dr. Catherine Smooth. She will be retiring after some 8 years of dedicated service to this program. And Dr. Smooth, if you're listening, we owe you a debt of gratitude. And we say thank you for your service over this past 8 years. I know that the ministry would have presented a token of our sincere appreciation. Ladies and gentlemen, some exciting news about the Nevis Film Commission. You haven't heard me talk about films much lately, because we have continued to work. A lot of that work has been happening behind the scenes. But we are now in a position to launch the Nevis Film Commission, and that will be done on Sunday, 18th May at 4:30 p.m. at NEPAC. We'll have the official launch of the Nevis Film Commission, a celebration of creativity, storytelling, and the vibrant future of film on Nevis. There will be a special screening on that day, and so I'm inviting one and all. And that special screening will allow you to get a behind-the-scenes look at the making of the groundbreaking Broadway hit Hamilton. There'll be a live question and answer with director and producer Alex Horwitz immediately following the screening. Don't miss an exclusive conversation with the filmmaker himself. You'll also have the opportunity to win 2 round-trip tickets between Nevis and St. Thomas, courtesy of Cape Air. They're up for grabs, plus a 2-day night stay at Mount Nevis Hotel, including breakfast. There will be entertainment and refreshments on hand. And you can visit the Film Focus Nevis Facebook and Instagram pages from the 5th of May, or by going to www.filmfocusnevis.com for details on how to register for a chance to win. Now, ladies and gentlemen, when we announced that we would pursue a film festival in the heart of film industry, in the heart of COVID, many scoffed, said it was not possible, said it was pie in the sky. But we believe that where there's a will, there's a way. And we persisted. And I'm very proud that through a partnership with MSR Media, we were able to produce some 8 movies on Nevis, and a 9th movie was done on St. Kitts. Those movies have now been released for public consumption. And in fact, it was only, I think, a week or 2 ago on social media, on Facebook, that one young woman said that her mother was watching The Island, one of the movies that was filmed here. And so here we are again, continuing on that march with film as an industry, setting up and launching our film commission on the island of Nevis, and announcing to the world that we are here and that we are open for business in relation to film. We have had the visit of several film producers. We have not had anything concluded that we can announce, but certainly we continue to put in the work, and we expect that this aspect to our economy, as we continue not only to talk about diversification, but to realize diversification, that aspect will continue to grow and develop. And so again, we will have the official launch. All members of the press are invited, and it will be on Sunday, 18th May, 4:30 p.m. at NEPAC. And during the launch, we will show the behind-the-scenes, Hamilton's America, behind-the-scenes look at the making of the groundbreaking Broadway hit, Hamilton. And we will have on hand the producer, Alex Horwitz, who will answer your questions. And so it looks like it will be a grand affair there at NEPAC. Some updates from tourism. The island of Nevis, our island of Nevis, was recently featured in Rolling Stone, UK. And we were proudly featured in that publication, which is one of the world's leading cultural and lifestyle publications. That article in Rolling Stone shone a global spotlight on our island's rich cultural heritage, vibrant community, and authentic Caribbean charm, positioning Nevis as a must-visit destination. The Nevis Mango Festival Will happen this year from July 4th to 6th. Preparations are well underway for this Mango Festival, set to be one of the largest and most exciting editions to date. Tickets are now on sale with an early bird special available until May 9th, and we encourage everyone to visit the official website and social media channels to secure tickets and stay updated on the festival schedule. The website is www.nevismangofest.com. And on FB, Facebook, and IG, Instagram, we're at Nevis Mango Festival. So we encourage people to go on, look and see what's happening. A tremendous level of excitement is out there already for our Mango Festival, which has now become a mainstay here in its 11th year on the island of Nevis. I'm also pleased to say that we had record-breaking participation this year for our cross-channel swim. That swim from Nevis to St. Kitts, it's an iconic bucket list global event now. Open water, open ocean swim from Nevis to St. Kitts. And this year we saw 478 swimmers participating. I'm told that 500 swimmers registered, but in the water on the day, we had 478 swimmers. The remarkable turnout is testament to the growing popularity. Now that swim has been taken over by Jane Hansen, and I have said to Jane, not only does she have my commendations, my congratulations, and my support, but I also want to see the swim get to 1,000 participants. That, for me, is a sweet spot. And so we're working on that. And just so the public knows that the swim this year attracted so many people, because these are the actual swimmers, but remember they come with families, friends, supporters, that we had people staying at hotels on St. Kitts. And so the morning of the swim, boats had to be coming from St. Kitts to Nevis to bring over. So I say that because sometimes people don't quite appreciate that these events are national. They generate national economic activity and an economic boost. All those people would have perhaps traveled through the RLB in St. Kitts. Where is the departure tax being paid? In St. Kitts. Who are the taxis and the operators who they'll take to and from? St. Kitts. If they go over for a day trip or tour or restaurant, St. Kitts. And in this case, they stayed at Marriott and they stayed at Park Hyatt and hotels on St. Kitts. And the reason, because sometimes I know our Nevision people get a bit cantankerous with me. The reason is that Nevis was full. Nevis was full. There was no room in the inn. And that is why they had to stay, some people, on St. Kitts. But the bigger point is that a lot of these initiatives benefit both islands. And I think that we ought to see it in that vein, because whilst it's a Nevis event, it was conceptualized and implemented here on the island of Nevis. It has now become a global event that benefits both islands. Let me advise those in the tourism sector, specifically the hotels, guest houses, and restaurants, that our tourism development levy, or our tourism tax as it's referred to, that has been increased by Act of Parliament, which will go into effect as of June 1st, 2025. It is currently at 2%, and it will be increased by an additional 1% to 3% as of the 1st of June. Now, this is the money that is raised to support the marketing of the island of Nevis, so far as tourism is concerned. And so we would have gone to the House, we would have passed the necessary legislation, very, very cursory legislation in terms of, I think it was just a one-liner, but it generated hours of conversation and debate, because some did not seem to understand that it is not a tax on the hotel or the restaurant or the guest house. It is, in fact, a tax on the consumer. That is, the person who stays at the hotel, at the guest house, or eats at the restaurant. And all that the guest house owner, the business operator, is doing is collecting that tax, which they then pay over to the government. So if your bill at your restaurant is 100 EC dollars, you used to pay $2 in an environmental, in a tourism and development levy, and you will now pay $3 EC if your bill is $100. So the change is actually quite nominal. I would also like to emphasize here today, as I did when we were in the House on this matter, that we had consultations with the hotel sector and the restaurant sector, and we had no difficulty, they had no difficulty with the increase by 1% because it is what they may call de minimis. It is negligible, that increase. And so a lot of the hoopla that I heard about it, I didn't quite understand, because if the businesses understand what is afoot and they have no difficulty, I'm not sure why some politicians were making the most noise, which demonstrated that they did not in fact understand what in fact we were seeking to do. So this is not the business having to pay this tax, the business merely collects it. It's like the VAT. They collect and pass on. They collect this tax and pass it on to the government. And as I said, after, I believe this was introduced in 2014, if memory serves. No, not 2014, 2012, forgive me. This 2% was introduced. It's now been 13 years, and so we're increasing it nominally to 3%, and that goes into effect on the 1st of June. Now you may ask, why the 1st of June? And again, coming out of our stakeholder consultations, many of them said that they already had groups that were booked and would have booked, and the cost quoted to them would have been based on the 2%. And so we said, okay, let us not implement it for this season. Let us implement it starting in June, which will then impact the upcoming season. So all of this was done through consultation with the stakeholder group, which is our hotels, guest houses, and restaurants. And so we look forward to that increased revenue to fund the activities of the NTA. Note as well, ladies and gentlemen of the press, that this government has been quite deliberate. Where we have to increase taxes, that we have sought to shield the local population as much as we can from those increases. So the other tax increases that we did this year is that we increased the costs of the financial services products that are being offered. And we know that many local people are not using those products. So again, the burden is passed on to those who are coming in, the visitors, those who are using the jurisdiction internationally. That's what we've sought to do in terms of shielding our people locally, but at the same time generating additional revenue for the number of demands that are on the government. Tourism Awareness Month, Exposition Nevis, that is going to happen in May of 2025, and we're going to have a number of events as usual: environmental cleanup campaign, Jessup Seafood Fiesta, Tourism Radio Quiz, Heritage Village Open Day. We've introduced something this year, quite interesting, called the Scenic Island Tour, where you will, for $100 EC, you'll get on a safari and tour Nevis and enjoy lunch at one of our beautiful restaurants. We have the Bank of Nevis Tourism Youth Congress, which is a regular event. And of course, as we know, Nevis is the current reigning champion of the CTO Youth Congress in the person of my junior minister of tourism, young Kiana Warner. We're also going to have a night at Passions. You know, there's quite a famous restaurant now there in Cox called Passions. I hope my good friend Karen is listening. She gave me plenty of trouble sometimes. I hope she's listening. Karen, we're proud of you and what you're doing there at Passions. So there's going to be a night at Passions Bar and Grill and entertainment by Garlic. That's a new activity as well. And we have a wellness fair at where? The Bath Springs, of course, and open day at New River. All of these are new activities, and we anticipate that these activities are going to do quite well and will be activities that the public will be excited by and participate in. Let me address a little ticklish matter. Ladies and gentlemen, members of the press, members of the public, the island administration has invested significantly in upgrades at our tourism venues, at our various locations around the island. We have invested significantly in ensuring that the visitor experience and the experience for our locals is enhanced. And one of those significant investments was done at the Bath Stream and Bath Hotel. In fact, it's continuing because you're now working on the old Bath Hotel as well. The idea really is to capture the brilliance of that particular area, capture the history that is there and all that is on offer. We were forced to introduce after we had invested significantly. In fact, I believe that the cost of those investments was close to 800,000 EC dollars or somewhere in that range. And as I said, investments are ongoing. We have added staff, cleaning staff, security, management. We've done all that. And so we now thought that it was appropriate that for a site that significant that there was a charge. And we introduced a nominal charge of $5 for visitors. I can't begin to tell you how many of our local divisions have given us problems. And I just don't understand why it is so difficult for some to appreciate that it takes money to upkeep these sites. All around the world, if you go to St. Kitts and you go to Brimstone Hill, and I may not even go all around the world, let me go 2 miles away to St. Kitts, you have to pay to go in. I was in Europe last summer and to visit an historical site there. My wife and I, it cost us 30 plus euros each. And I believe the last time I checked, that was over 100 EC dollars each. And so I just want our people to understand that heritage has to be preserved, but we need to participate. And look at what we did at the Bath Stream. We said for our own nationals, St. Kitts and Nevis, it is free, F-R-E-E. But $5 was the nominal charge that we introduced for visitors. You know what started to happen, members of the press? Bus drivers and tour operators with the visitors, you know what they do? They went into Bath Village and went around the back way to try and get their people into the Bath Stream for free. We had to run a chain to stop them from going in that, to go into Bath Village and come around in order to access it for free. I mean, help us. The product is being lifted, the product is being elevated, and your visitors, the people that you have in your taxi, taking them around, those people are going to now have something that they can enjoy much more than before. So help us to upkeep it instead of trying to evade. We've had instances down there where we've had, of course, to put up a barrier, because as people come in, you ask, are you local, etc., and so you determine who can be free and who has to pay. And abusing the staff and carrying on, they belong to us, and of course it belongs to us. And the government has maintained that by saying it will be free to the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. But understand that we're putting things in place to make it a better experience for everybody. We have had a challenge, and I say it here, of some people deciding that they must bathe in the stream naked. Adults. And they say, oh, that's how we're accustomed to do it. And I'm saying, if that is what you wish to do, well, you can go there at night after hours. You can go early mornings before the stream opens. But why on earth would you want to be down there naked, hardback man and woman, when you have a bus full of tourists or people who are there? I mean, why should we have to have these discussions, ladies and gentlemen? To me, these are matters which just common sense and common decency should dictate. Some are saying Nevis must be the Nevis of 100 years ago. That can't happen. The island has moved on. It has progressed. And I'm not saying that we abandon our culture. But if there are aspects of our culture that we have to adjust in order to deal with the modern situation that we now face, then let us do it. We introduce some rules. For example, we advise that it is inappropriate and unhelpful to use soaps and chemicals in the pools because the water that is in there is natural. It's natural spring water. It has in natural chemicals. That's the whole purpose about it. And we know that the water flows. So if you're upstream using your soap and your alkalada and your whatever it is you're using, that is flowing down onto people who are downstream. So again, we're just saying to people, be reasonable with us, work with us. We're not trying to be rude or obnoxious or difficult with anybody, but for God's sake, work with us. We're trying to improve. That's what we're trying to do. And our people, on the one hand, say they want development and they want progress, and on the other hand, so many of them. Fortunately, only a few, but that few tends to be a noisy few. And they want to fight and they want to carry on. Nobody going to tell them this and nobody going to tell them that. We are just trying to work to improve, to make things better, to make it more enjoyable. And which of us here, let us be honest, members of the press, would feel good taking their young daughter or their young son down to the Bath stream and say, let us go there on a Sunday and just go to the Springs Cafe and have something to eat and read a book and use the stream. And then you see some big man and woman down there naked. It's not right. It's not helpful. And it just requires a minor adjustment. That's all it requires. And so we're just encouraging people. And I know I got some backlash even from some of my constituents in Bath Village. Oh, you come with change. We're not changing. We're trying to improve things. We used to ride donkey. Now we drive car. We used to walk school barefoot. Now we wear shoes. Improvements. And that's what the island has to be about. And I'm just encouraging our people to embrace what we've done. Because when you go to the Bath Stream, it is such a beautiful place. It's an oasis of calm in a world now that is so volatile and so unpredictable. And so we encourage our people, please, to work with us. Now, part of the difficulty, and perhaps it was a lack of foresight on our part, is that we had locals, that is, Nevisians and Kittitians, nationals are free to use the Bath Stream. And then we had visitors, that is, non-locals, having to pay $5 US. But there was a category in between that we didn't provide for, and that is people who are resident here, but don't have any credentials as a citizen here. But they live here. They make their contribution here. And so today, I'm here to announce that we've now introduced a non-national resident rate. And that will be $5 EC or US $2. So put differently, citizens of St. Kitts and Nevis will be free. If you live here in St. Kitts and Nevis, it will be $5 EC or the US $2. And if you are a visitor, that is, you live overseas, and you're clearly then not a resident, and you're not a citizen, then you will pay $5 US. So, someone said to me, I'm from St. Kitts and Nevis, but I happen to live in Canada. So when I come home, I got to pay? My suggestion is you should be offering to pay to help develop your little island that you left here. But you don't have to pay because you are a citizen, once you have your evidence of your citizenship. We do have, of course, nevertheless, a donation basket there that we also encourage people to make donations. So even if it's free for you to enter, please, still make a contribution, recognizing that these things cost a lot for us to put in place. So just to recap, citizens remain free, citizens of St. Kitts and Nevis. Residents will have to pay $5 EC or $2 US, and visitors will pay $5 US. Please note that we will require some proof of residency to obtain these concessionary rates, and we will be introducing a weekly pass, which will cost EC $25, or US $10, and a monthly pass, which will cost EC $80 or US $30. And that's for people who are resident here. And if you realize that the weekly pass at EC $25 gives a discount because a week is 7 days. And if you were paying by the day, it would be $5 per day. But you could pay by the week and get it for $25. And some people, I'm told, go there every day. And so we encourage them to take advantage of this. Ladies and gentlemen, let me quickly advise that the Cottle Church is having what they call congregation experience, a collection of 13 inspiring blankets, in honor of our ancestors. They're created by someone called Cyle, C-Y-L-E Warner. Is that Cyle or Kyle? I'm not sure how you'd pronounce that. But C-I-L-E Warner of New York, and who is a product of the Federation. They'll have eats and drinks, and the entry is $20. It will be from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. on Sunday, May 3rd, at the Cottle Church. Dress code, Caribbean creative. That's a dress code, so you can be creative in your Caribbean wear. Let me end, ladies and gentlemen, by reporting very proudly that we continue to experience a boom in tourism on the island of Nevis. And for the month of March, our 2% tourism levy yielded an unprecedented $565,378.07. That is, I'm advised, over 200,000 more than it would have yielded last year at the same time. And I think that that is very significant. It says that we're moving in the right direction. And I believe even as we speak, the Four Seasons would just have come out, or was it just have started? Just have come out, I think, of a sold-out environment down there. Or to use the Four Seasons terminology, they were fully committed. And I like the notion that you're fully committed. So, ladies and gentlemen, those are my few updates, and I now take your questions.
Good morning, Mr. Premier, and good morning to everyone who's present.
Good morning.
Shamika Bajin, Vaughan Radio. Mr. Premier, what is the status of the following hotels on Nevis? Windham, Nisbet's Plantation in St. James, Old Manor, and I think that one will be or should be constructed in Indian Castle in Gingerland. Also, what is the status on the Gingerland Health Clinic? Can you provide an update on the geothermal project? I think the last update was that the government was waiting on the completion of the bidding process. And that's it for me for now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Budgeon. Status on these various projects. The Windham project that had originally been proposed for St. James, that project went into some, how should I say, a bit of a lull. And then they revived the project, but at a new location. They're now saying that they want the project now to be located next to the St. Thomas's Primary School, so in what we call Paradise Beach. The last I'm aware of that is that they were going through the planning process. They had submitted plans. They were having the environmental impact assessment done. In fact, I believe there was actually a meeting, a public meeting that occurred in relation to that project, but I don't have any further updates at this point on it, except that last I gathered, it was going through the necessary legal process for planning and approval. The Nisbet project is one that is very important because, as we know, Nisbet has been the grand dam of hotel projects on the island. The Nisbet property was purchased late last year by some developers who had it under contract for quite a few years prior to the purchase. They purchased it late last year, and they have not really advanced that development because we've been having a series of conversations with them. They have expressed the concern that the airport development will impact in a negative way their development. We do not share that concern, But as a consequence of that, we've had a number of conversations back and forth with technical teams, with the owners, the new owners of the property, to determine where we can resolve those concerns that they have. As I said, those concerns are not shared on our side, because we are not in any way impinging or trespassing on any property that is Nisbet's property. But Nisbet has expressed the concern, the new owners that is, that the extended airport will now create noise and other concerns for them and their development. So we're looking at it. We, of course, take stakeholders very seriously. This is a development that is important to the island of Nevis. We want it to proceed. It has been delayed for a very, very long time. But we also need our airport facility constructed for the future of this island and the advancement. Bearing in mind that the last major infrastructural work done at the Van Samre International Airport was over 20 years ago. Aviation has moved on since then, and we think that our plan now to develop a private jet facility and to be able to attract direct flights from Miami using the Embraer regional jet aircraft, that plan is something that's workable and something that we have clearly embarked upon. And before you get back up to ask me where we are on the airport, we anticipate that we should be able to break ground very, very shortly. We have had a number of what I would call administrative holdups on the land acquisition. Administrative in that we have secured funding, we've been told that the funding is there, but the drawdown of those funds, we've met one, this clause need to be tweaked and little things like those. But I was advised last week that we had finally come to the end of those issues, and so I'm hopeful that we'll be able to draw down shortly. An individual will be able to collect the monies that are owed to them for their lands. Of course, we must acquire the lands before we can proceed. And so we anticipate, Ms. Budgeon, that we will be able to proceed with that very, very shortly. And I'm hopeful that we could have a groundbreaking ceremony in June. And if we can achieve that, then the construction period is intended to be 18 months. So I'm still optimistic that by the tourism season of 2026 tourism season, if we can get going this June, we should be in a position to move forward. Right? Yeah, 2026 will be 12 months, and the 6 months, that is this year, will give us about 18 months. So that's the idea. Old Manor really is never been up for consideration by us, simply because Old Manor is private property. It has been there sitting now for, I'm sure, well over a decade. And I am not sure what the owners are doing with it. We've had various people showing interest, but the government has not really been involved in the Old Manor property. Indian Castle, we are having some very detailed discussions. Now, I'm not in a position to make an announcement, but I hope to be shortly in a position to make an announcement in relation to Indian Castle and what we anticipate can happen there. Status on the Gingerland Clinic, I'm not sure I understand the question. I'm not sure there's that I will advise of any problems at the Gingerland Clinic. I know that we had some renovation that were being done. As far as I know, those are ongoing. And I would anticipate that, in fact, by now, they should be nearing completion of those. But I have not had an update on that. Things tend to come to me by way of update only when there's a problem. So I don't anticipate that there's any difficulty there. The geothermal project, you're right, and my update remains what I gave on the last occasion. And we are, I can say, closer now because the bids should be opened by the 8th of May. I think that's the date, Pierce, that I'm given, the 8th of May. So various companies, I'm told we have 9 or so companies are bidding on the production well drilling. And so we anticipate that by the 8th of May. So God willing, by the next press conference, I should be able to tell you what those bids look like, how many companies would have bid. I should also say that early next month, I've been invited to Miami to speak at the CREF conference and to address specifically geothermal and what we are doing in that regard. And so I look forward certainly to that very important engagement and to be able to have updates to give at that engagement in Miami when it happens. Any other questions for me?
Good morning, Premier.
Good morning, Mr. Bart.
Glenn Bart from SKN Newsline. Mr. Premier, sometime last week, I believe it was, a video clip appeared on social media showing a Miss Portia Williams on a show talking about her visit to Nevis, but she spoke more about St. Kitts. But the issue really is, I guess, is the way in which it was done, in which she referred to her visit to Nevis. In some instances, she seemed not to know where she was in the Federation, that she was on Nevis. And she seemed not to promote Nevis in a good way. My question is this: what are your views on this kind of situation, and how does this factor into future endeavors in which we have celebrities of some sort involved in promoting our country, St. Kitts, whether it's St. Kitts or Nevis? Now, there is also a situation which has re-emerged again with regards to Culturama. I have been made aware that some service providers have still not received payment for their services, and they're getting very concerned. As small business operators, they say it puts a lot of pressure on them because they do have to meet expenses. And when it takes this long, they're now beginning to wonder, should they continue to participate, to make bids, or whatever the process is in this year's program. My question to you is, first, how quickly can those persons be paid? And secondly, are there likely to be any changes in the procedures and payments for people who provide services in this year's Culturama? I'll leave it there for now.
Okay, Mr. Bart, thank you very much. In relation to the video clip of Portia Williams, I'm not entirely sure why you're asking me. If Portia did not know where she was, then I can't tell you why Portia would not know where she was. I had nothing to do with Miss Williams. The Nevis Island Administration, nor our tourism authority had anything to do with Miss Williams being here. Miss Williams would have come on her, for whatever purpose, and being some form of celebrity, she would have gone back and she would have been interviewed and it appeared not to remember where she visited. I would have looked on her Instagram and she was posting lots of videos and photos from Nevis. In fact, she posted photos at the Bath Hotel. She posted videos at the pool at Four Seasons. She was saying what a great holiday she was having. And for me, what was acutely embarrassing for her, not for Nevis, but for her, is that the people who were interviewing her, the clip that you talked about, were actually Kelly Ripa and her husband, Mark Consuelo, who used to spend a lot of time in Nevis, very familiar with Nevis. And so when Kelly asked her, so did you get over to Nevis? And she said, no. And her husband asked, did you see the monkeys? It was clear that I think there was a moment when she probably lost just track of reality. I suspect, however, that the reason you're asking me the question, Mr. Bart, is because of the insidious nature of these breaking news stories that political propagandists continue to put out. Because I saw a whole article that somebody sent me saying that I ought to be embarrassed because we paid to bring Portia Williams to Nevis and Portia Williams embarrassed us. It was all a lie. The NIA had nothing to do with Miss Williams coming. So, Mr. Bart, if you were to decide tomorrow to go to Jamaica and you were to post to your personal pages that you're enjoying yourself at the pool and all of that, and then you were to come back and somebody were to ask you, how was your trip to Jamaica? And you say, well, I did not go to Jamaica, I went to Trinidad. I don't see how that becomes an issue for the government, because the government had no involvement in that. I don't see anybody calling Andrew Holness in Jamaica, asking him, why Glenn Bart say he was in Trinidad when in fact he was in Jamaica. But this is the nature of the propaganda. And I remember speaking to a representative from WinFM some weeks ago at this press conference and suggesting to her that sometimes this political mischief infects the, what I would call the legitimate media. And when we see breaking news, 'cause that's a term now, you know, I see another rag sheet keeps saying, oh, outrage erupts. These kinds of things are intended to attract and unfortunately found their way into the mainstream media when there's absolutely no truth to it, none whatsoever. So I want to make it pellucid that the NIA, the Nevis Tourism Authority, the Ministry of Tourism, we had no contact with Ms. Williams, no part of her being here. She would have come. I'm told she was at the Four Seasons. Based on her Instagram, she would have posted. And then, of course, in the interview, she clearly forgot which island she visited. That's on her. I have nothing to do with that, and I hope that her memory comes back in good stead, in good time. When we reach out to celebrities as government, or we reach out to anyone else as government to engage, we will have very clear guidelines as to what that engagement would look like. So, for example, you would have heard us from time to announce ambassadors, and you know, somebody like Candy Carter, who we say is a diversity ambassador for her. It's very clear what that engagement looks like. In fact, Ms. Carter is not being paid by us. They tend to be honorific positions. And so that's what we do in Nevis. So again, we had nothing to do with Ms. Williams' visit. We hope that she enjoyed herself while she was here. It looked that way from her IG postings, and we're hopeful that when her memory comes back, that she will say something about Nevis. But that's on her, not on me, not on us, not on Nevis. The situation with Culturama. Mr. Bart, again, sometimes these things, I don't know quite how to respond, because anybody who's been involved with Culturama for any time understands that there is usually a delay in payments. It's not something new. Culturama celebrated 50 years last year, and it has occurred every year. In fact, in the House at the budget debates last year, which happened in December, I was able to outline year after year when final payments were made. We have had examples of final payments being made as late as July in the following year, under a different government, not this government. We have tried our very best to make the payments, but sometimes we have exigencies that occur. We have issues in terms of cash flow, etc. I have had a conversation up to last week with the Ministry of Finance, and what they've said to me is that most of our smaller vendors have been paid off in full. The problem that continues to persist has to do with a lot of the larger vendors. And just so people understand that we have vendors who charge Culturama as much as $200,000 and $300,000 sometimes for whatever they provide. So what we do with those larger vendors is we tend to pay them sort of in installments. But nobody can say they have not been paid anything. They may argue that they have not been paid in full. But what we have tried to do is to pay. So the smaller vendors, I'm advised, PS Door, if you're listening, if I'm not being advised wrongly, you're going to have to take the hit on this. But I spoke to PS Door, PS in Finance, and he advised that the smaller vendors have largely been satisfied. And the larger vendors are the ones that are still owed money, and we're trying to pay them in installments as we go. I made a commitment the last time I was here, if I recall, that we would be paid up this month. And I'm still sticking to that commitment. I'm still hopeful that by this month, April, we would be done with that. If it spills over into early May, I apologize, but that was our intention, to have everybody paid off. But the outrage that I'm hearing is really feigned. It's fake outrage. I'm not suggesting, Mr. Bart, that people are not to be paid as soon as they do something. But I'm saying Culturama has had a particular process over the years where people anticipate. Most times by December, people are paid off. This year, unfortunately, we've gone over into the new year. But that's what we try to do. December is normally the time. But it happens every single year. And I challenge anyone out there to point out to me one year when everybody got paid in August as soon as Culturama was finished. That's never the case. Right? It's never the case. And I don't know if that happens in St. Kitts. I don't know where it happens. But it's never the case in Nevis. There's always some delay. And I just want the public to be patient with us. People know that they will get their money. And I heard a lot of noise being made in some quarters, but a lot of it is fueled by the politics, not really the practical situation on the ground. Because whether it's us in government or somebody else in government, it's always been the case. As I said, we have one example where the final payments were not made until July of the following. That's the start of another culture round, right? But people participate and they understand that these are some of the shortcomings. But we'll continue to work on it. And I make that commitment to get people their money. We have said by the end of this month, we're at the end of the month now, so I don't know where things are. I'll have to check. But certainly, I'm told the small vendors have all been satisfied. And it's the larger, the $200,000 and $300,000 vendors who we are paying over time. But every vendor, I'm advised, has received some money, even if they've not received the full amount as yet. And we continue to make efforts to get them paid off.
Good morning, Mr. Premier. Elke Hewlett, Department of Information. Nevis recently gained approval for the Charlestown proposal for the aged-friendly cities. What does this mean for Nevis and our seniors and potential expats looking to retire in Nevis? The opposition asked, I think it was at the last sitting of the Nevis Island Assembly, about the final cost of the Alexandra Hospital expansion. Has that cost been finalized as yet? You would have returned from an official trip to New York over the weekend. Can you tell us about that visit? The NIA purchased, I think it was 36 acres of land for housing in Garner's estate. I stand to be corrected on the location. Has any infrastructural work started as yet, and how many housing lots are anticipated for those lands? Has the NIA cabinet had a chance to assess a fair share or revenue share report as yet, and has a date been set for you to meet with the Prime Minister to discuss that report? How is the government's financing for development of the island been impacted by having to pay $30 million to resolve the Rest Haven matter, and has the NIA given any thought as to what that piece of real estate can be used for in the future? STEP Nevis is hosting the STEP Caribbean Conference in 2025 in about 2 weeks. Can you shed some light on this event and how it impacts Nevis's financial services industry? And those are my very few questions.
Must be that few has a new definition, Ms. Hewlett. As I say, you have not left anything to be asked. So, age-friendly cities. I am actually very pleased that you've raised that, because I would want to commend the Honorable Janet Elizabeth and her team that they would have engaged with this process. And I suspect that it has not really got the traction in the press that I think it deserves. That Nevis, and more specifically the town of Charlestown, is now the only city designated by the World Health Organization as an age-friendly city in the entire OECS region. It is the first and only in the OECS. And that was based on a review that was done on what we provide in terms of elderly care and support on the island of Nevis. And so I think it says a lot that this little island has demonstrated such excellence in terms of taking care of our elderly, that the WHO, the World Health Organization, has decided to designate Charlestown in the island of Nevis as the very first OECS town that is deemed age-friendly. And so I think that that's a significant, significant accolade for the Ministry of Health and Gender, which also, of course, deals with our seniors. And I have said in the past, Ms. Hewlett, that our seniors program are the envy of the region. And this accolade is an international recognition of what we have been doing here on the island of Nevis. The final cost of the Alexandra Hospital, I'm going to delay that answer. The reason for that is that I can confirm that we now have the necessary information. We have 2 bids that have come in. We were waiting on some information, if you recall, from the Taiwanese. That information is now in hand, but it has not yet been evaluated by the cabinet. So it has been shared with the cabinet, but not yet dealt with. And so I would prefer to come back and let you know once the cabinet deliberations are complete. But I can say that the information that we were waiting on, we now have it. It has been provided to us. And I had given previous updates to say that we were waiting on some information. So I'm sorry?
An idea what that,
The information is about costing. It's about what it would require to get us to the end of this project that we've committed to finalizing. So we want to restart the project this year and, of course, take it to completion. And we wanted to know what the cost was, what the steps that we needed to take, and to get professional expertise to bear on that. So the Taiwanese would have come. I think they made 2 visits to the island, and we're waiting on them. So they've now come back to us to tell us exactly what is what the amounts would be, etc. And as I said, we had a previous quotation as well. So we now have 2 that we can work with, and we're evaluating those. And I'll be pleased to come back once we're in a position to make an announcement as to when we start and how we're going to finance the project and take it to the end. But this is a project, I remind you, that we are very committed to finalizing. So we have the information now. It's just for us to take some decisions and then to report back to the public. My trip to New York, you're correct, I would have gone to New York. I was invited as a guest to the Boston College Wall Street alumni event, and that event would have occurred last week, Wednesday. I would have therefore gone up to New York. I arrived into New York last week, Tuesday, late at night, and would have left on Friday morning at 4 a.m. to come back. While I was there, I attended that event, and I also attended a number of meetings associated with the Indian Castle proposed development. The event at Wall Street was very useful. It was a good networking event, and the reason for me being at Boston College's networking event, gala event in Wall Street, was really because some of the people that are involved in some projects that we are proposing for Nevis are Boston College alums. And they have visited, they have connected us with other people in the legal fraternity and also in the development and real estate development fraternity. And it was thought that it was a good environment for the Premier to come and to meet some of these individuals. In fact, I'll tell you that our Candy Carter, whom you heard me mention a lot, she's a Boston College alum. And through her efforts, the island of Nevis has been reaping significant benefits already. For example, one gentleman who in fact was one of the co-hosts of that dinner, he came here with, I think, nearly 24 family members and rented some villas at Four Seasons, and I gather spent a significant amount of money because it was recommended to them by Ms. Carter. I had the opportunity to engage with him and his wife and some of his children who had come here, his relatives who had come here, and they have said that they will be back in April. So they have fallen in love. It was their first trip, and they're coming back. And so there are a number of people there. We're trying also to persuade Boston College to say to them that they can have they tend to have these retreats for the board, that they can certainly do look at Nevis as a potential for those types of events as well. So I think it was a good opportunity just to meet some of the movers and shakers, and I was very grateful to have the honor of being invited there and to meet some rather interesting people. I met, for example, some individuals who said that they had been going to Anguilla for many, many years, but had never come to Nevis. So they are now committed to coming over to Nevis to see what we have to offer. So it's all about partly tourism, partly investment and development. That was the purpose of the trip. And then, as I say, we are hopeful that we're on the home stretch to make an announcement for something at Indian Castle. And so I was there. We're working on the necessary agreements in relation to that as well. The 36 acres at Garner's, it is 36 acres. And I do not have an update on that in terms of the number of lots, because the last I was told by our Minister of Lands, the Honorable Eric Evelyn, is that they were doing the subdivision. So they're still looking at really trying to ascertain how many lots they can get out of it. It is intended to be a higher end residential community because, of course, it is there in the University Heights area. And the intention behind it is that we are looking at different models, but one possibility is that we won't be doing the usual model of house and land, but rather we'll sell the lots and allow people the opportunity to build what they want in their own time. That was the original model at Prospect, for example, in St. John's, where the NHLDC sold land and people built up their homes over time, rather than the NHLDC also undertaking the construction of the house. So the idea really is that people, especially those here and those abroad, who want to get a piece of the rock, will be able to purchase. So those 36 acres, we hope, are going to go very fast. I did tell the minister to work fast and see if we could have it ready for Culturama when people are going to be home, but we'll wait and see whether that's going to happen. So we're encouraging people, when the lots become available, to snap them up. It's an excellent, excellent location, great views, up in the hills, very cool, and I think that people will find it a good place to invest and live. The Fair Share report, as I confirmed, I now have the report. It has been shared with the Cabinet, but we have not yet discussed it in large measure because I would have traveled, last week, would have been away last week, and prior to that, my colleague, the Honorable Spencer Brand, had been away. He had taken a bit of a personal break. I think he went to celebrate his 25th anniversary of his wedding, which I think was a useful and important reason for him to be off for a few days. So we are hopeful that we will be able to consider that this week, and then thereafter we'll be able to engage with the federal government on it. But we do have the report, and members, it has been shared with members already. The government financing and this $30 million Resthaven debacle, I have spoken about this from time to time, Ms. Hewlett. It was a reckless decision to acquire Resthaven without any plan. We found, when we got into government, no indication as to why the previous government troubled the people and their property. The property was already, at that point, out of service. It was not functioning as a hotel. And yet they went and acquired the property. They said in the public announcement it was acquired for touristic development. But what that touristic development was supposed to be, we don't know. Who the developers were supposed to be, we don't know. Who the investors were supposed to be, we don't know. There was no information. And we've asked, who are these people? Why was this land acquired? Nobody can give us an explanation. But the acquisition perhaps was a horrible decision, but what was even more horrible is that they paid not one penny, consistent with the approach taken by the then government, led by the Honorable Joseph Parry, the NRP government, that they would acquire people's land but not pay them as mandated by law. And so across this island, I think it was 13 different pieces of property were taken from people without one penny being paid. In fact, there's a lot of land now, a lot of land, a land lot, down at Jessop's Bay that we are currently, today in 2025, paying off the owner for. Because that gentleman living in St. Martin had his land taken from him way back in 2008 and was never paid a penny. And we have been forced into all these negotiations with people. In some instances, we have tried to give people back their land because we could find no use for it. It's just as if the government went on a rampage. 13 pieces of land all across Nevis were taken by the NRP. None of them paid for. None. And that was the problem by the time we got into government in 2013 to try and deal with this Resthaven thing. We met litigation that had to be settled. We had to have a valuation done. And that valuation put that piece of land at, I believe it was 5.6 or 5.7 million US dollars. And then now, of course, the interest. Because his interest now going back to when it was acquired in 2007, 2008. And we now have to deal with that burden because up to now, we can't find a reason, a developer, an investor, a partner. Why was Resthaven taken? And if it was taken, why was no money paid? So we have been trying to deal with that. So short answer is that what it has done, it has added significantly to our debt. And that $30 or so million that is owed there has carried up our debt quite significantly. So our debt, which was teetering at, I think, below $500 million, has been pushed over to that range now. And my math isn't that great, but 30 million out of 500 million works out at what in terms of a percentage? 50 million would have been 10%. So 30 million is probably around what, 6%? 7%? So just imagine that these decisions in one fell swoop added 6 to 7% to our national debt. Bad decisions have consequences for us. Government is continuous, so we must deal with it. But I continue to point out that it was an incomprehensible decision to go and take these 2 acres of land with no plan, no investor, no development, no developer, nothing, and take it and then not pay for it. That's the kind of reckless, irresponsible, illegal activity that used to happen here on the island of Nevis. We now have to clean up that mess. STEP 2025 will be happening at the Marriott. It's being sponsored by the Nevis Island Administration and our STEP Nevis. STEP Nevis is the only STEP association in St. Kitts and Nevis. And it is being spearheaded in large measure by our legal advisor, Helen Lewis. She's a senior person within STEP, and so she's chairing that conference. It's an excellent opportunity, Ms. Hewlett, for the Nevisian service providers to showcase their products and to showcase the jurisdiction. We intend at that event to launch a new website. We intend at that event to launch what we're calling what is the Nevis Finance? Yes, thank you so much. Nevis Finance, and the intention really is to create a one-stop shop, if you will, for financial services for the island of Nevis. We've seen